Hey guys, I'm Roxanne and welcome to White Cotton Quilts. I've got my energy drink going on here in my Sailor Moon cup, and we are going to get down to some skill building classes today. Okay, everybody that is a new quilter, new sewer, you've had to do the flying geese units multiple times. And some versions may be your favorite way to do them, whether you like doing them 4 at a time, or you like doing them stitch and flip, or maybe you even just like doing them as a half square triangle and you put 2 of them together to make your flying geese unit. It's all good, whichever way you want to do it. So today I'm going to be showing you how to do the 4 at a time and the stitch and flip. And these are coming from my pattern. Let me get it here for you guys, called Gaining Altitude. So Gaining Altitude is a really great skill building pattern because you're going to be doing the 4 at a time method and you're going to be doing the stitch and flip method. So it's awesome for skill building. So the first thing you're going to do, and you can do this pattern with a layer cake, you're going to need a 10-inch square of your background color, and you are going to cut this into 4. So that means you're going to get 4 5-inch squares out of it. And then you are going to need, and I'm using a 10-inch square of Tula Pink, and you are going to cut this down to 9.5-inch square. Okay, so that means you're only going to take a 1/2 inch off of each side. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take 1 of the 10-inch squares of the color and 1 of our background color, and I'm going to go ahead and cut those down, and I'm going to meet you over at the sewing machine for the next part for some tips and tricks. All right, so the first thing we are going to do is we are going to take our 5-inch squares here of our background. And, oh, there it is. And we're going to take, this is a chalk pencil, and we are going to take our ruler and we are going to draw a line corner to corner on all 4 of these guys. Let me do that real quick. All right, last one. All right, so now that we have our background squares with a line drawn corner to corner, we're going to take our color square here. This is the 9.5-inch color square, and we're going to lay 1 square on each. So what I'm going to do here though is, you notice here it's like lined up exactly on. Well, that's not going to give you very much wiggle room for shifting. So I'm going to pull this inwards towards the center, and you probably can't see it on the camera, but I'm pulling it in about 1 stitch. So it's not exactly on this edge. And the reason I do that is because when your feed dog and your presser foot are working together, they're pushing like this. And so it's going to cause pieces like this to shift. Mainly it's going to shift downwards, right? Because your machine is pulling stuff this way. So it's going to shift this way. So to compensate for the shift, we're going to push that just a stitch inwards. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Making sure that the diagonal line is going through the center. Don't worry if this line doesn't line up exactly. It needs to be fairly close. It cannot be like off a ton, but it needs to be fairly close. But if it's not exact, it's not really something to stress about. So we are going to pin this because, like I said, we want to cut down on the amount of shift that's going to just naturally happen because of the way the machine works. Just like this. Pin this in. All right, guys. So here's our next step. So the next step we're going to do is we are going to sew 1/4 of an inch on either side of this line. Now, if you are a new sewer or you have trouble holding that 1/4 of an inch seam, what I want you to do is so simple. Get masking tape. Masking tape, washi tape, something. And take a ruler and measure from the needle out. And wherever that 1/4 of an inch is, my machine, my foot lands right on there. I think my machine does like a scant 1/4 of an inch. Every machine is going to be different. But I want you to go from the needle and measure out and take that tape and lay it across that line and give yourself a good, off the front and back. The other thing I want you to do is take and layer it 5 or 6 strips so that you get this cute, you're gonna get this good little lip off of it. That's gonna help you to butt your fabric up against and help you keep that straight. So in this case though, what you're going to want to do is you are going to want to, in my case, I'm going to place this edge of my foot against the line. Because I'm left-handed, I naturally start on that line. If you're right-handed, you are going to want to start with your 1/4 of an inch wherever it is on the other side. But since I'm left-handed, I always start kind of backwards. So we're just going to follow that line all the way down. Go slow over where they cross. And I want you to notice something. I am going across this line with, it's like going with the grain. So I've got this laid over the top. So I'm not trying to push it this direction. And that will mess you up. So you want to kind of go with the grain a little bit. So go slow right there at that spot. And then you can go back. I am not cutting off the thread. We are just going to lift and turn. Go back down. Now when you get to the center, you're going to see this lip of fabric go in the opposite direction. But since you've already stitched the other side, it should minimize it pushing and the rolling and movement that you're going to have. So just go slow over it. So we are going to cut this apart. Just like this. I'm using scissors, but I much prefer to use my rotary cutter. That way I can make sure I'm doing 1/4 of an inch seam. Just like this. And then we are going to go, you're going to press them. So I've got one here that I've already gone and pressed. So you are going to get 2 pieces that look something like this, and you're going to have 2 background squares left with a line drawn. You're going to kind of repeat the same process. You're going to put that square right up through the middle. Like I said before, I nudge it in about a stitch. That gives you a little wiggle room for stuff to shift while you're sewing. And we're going to do the same thing. Just like this. I'm going to do that to this one. And you're going to do the same process over again. You're going to stitch on both sides of the line. Let me move my scissors. I prefer, when I'm doing this, I prefer to start up here at the top. That way, like I said, your pressure foots and your feed dogs are going to be moving stuff this direction. So you don't want too much fabric up here, but at the same time, You don't want too much down here. So I always start up here, and that's why I nudged it in at the bottom. So hopefully those two will even themselves out. So now when you press it open, you have, and after you do the other one, you'll have 4 flying geese units like this. Now you notice, see, I've got this hanging off the top, and I got the same on this one. These are large and oversized, so you will need to trim them down. I always recommend when you trim down to try to trim off as much as you can from this bottom instead of the top. The reason I say that is you want to have a 1/4 of an inch between the point of your goose and the top edge. That is your seam allowance. So if you're trimming, you go, oh, I don't like that hanging off of there. It does, you know, if you cut that off, you run the risk of not having your seam allowance. And if you don't have your seam allowance, your finished units, when you sew them together, you're going to lose that point. So in my opinion, if you're going to trim this off, just please, please, please make sure that you leave a 1/4 of an inch between this point and the top edge. And, you know, or do like I do, and I just barely nip that off if it really bugs you. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to press these, and then I'm going to trim them, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to work on the stitch and flip version of the flying geese.